governing structure of this state and for those of you all who are running for federal office of this country. So thank you so very much. And I want to thank the Women's Progressive Forum for allowing us this opportunity. Indeed, my name is Teresa Tomlinson. I am thrilled to be running for United States Senate against David Perdue. I have roots all over this great state. I'm an 8th generation Georgian, but know that 7 generations of that is rank rural poverty. My mom's family is from central South Georgia. My great-great-grandfather was a day laborer, a timber cutter. My second great-grandfather was a sharecropper. My grandfather was a sharecropper. And until the Swift Meatpacking Company came to Moultrie, Georgia with union jobs, they couldn't claw their way out of poverty. My mom didn't graduate from high school. She had a union job, and I stand here before you today as a college graduate, as a graduate of Emory Law School, and now as a U.S. candidate for Senate. Because of that opportunity, it's important. And so I had the opportunity to practice law in the federal court system, taking on some huge cases and fighting corporate corruption, and then I had the privilege of serving 2 terms as mayor of Columbus, Georgia, where we reduced crime by 42%, reduced homelessness by 40%, completely restructured our budget, saved our public pension, and we were named one of the 25 best-run cities in the United States of America, and that didn't happen by talk to you tonight about something that a lot of folks don't talk about, and that's racism and inequality. And I think it's incumbent on, frankly, the white elected officials and leaders of this state to help our friends and neighbors of color to tote this load, to talk about these sensitive subjects, and to talk about how we might be able to do better. And you can't pass a piece of legislation that changes people's hearts and minds, but by God, what you can do is you can change the framework in which we live. And so I want to make it clear that I'm running for United States Senate because I believe that the United States of America is the greatest civic invention that mankind has ever known. I believe that government is the framework in which we live our most prosperous life. And I believe the government is us, you see. And so when it comes to things like racism and inequity, when we have a framework, when we have a structure that has systemic racial and gender bias in it, then we're not doing right by one another. Not only, if you don't personally feel a moral compulsion to make a more fair system, and if you just can't wrap your hands around that for some reason, well then know this, it's hurting us that we have systemic bias in our economic and social systems in this country. So let me give you a couple of facts and then delve into the proposed solutions. First of all, in 1865, when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, African Americans had 0.5% of the wealth of this country. Today, in 2019, African Americans, black citizens of the United States of America, have between 1 and 2% of the wealth of this country. A third of black families have negative or zero wealth. White families, a typical white family has 10 times the wealth of a typical black family. And I tell you that because in Georgia, studies have been done that if we could remove these systemic 20th century racial biases and gender biases from our economic and social systems, that the economy of Georgia would be $94 billion bigger. The economy of the United States of America would be $1 trillion bigger. This is an economic suppression issue. We are not the great country we can be. Our economy isn't as robust as it could be if we would only work hard to create a new 21st century infrastructure. And so if you go to teresatomlinson.com under issues, you will see 14 position papers. 14. I love this stuff. It is important to you. You need to know where I stand on these issues. But one of those is about a new civic and economic infrastructure. So let me tell you what that is. Civic infrastructure. Amending the Voting Rights Act so that we have one person, one vote in this country, and bringing back pre-clearance, because that's the essence of power. And if our voting system is in any way disproportionately affecting people of color, then they are necessarily being marginalized in our civic infrastructure. you know, and then you look at things such as immigration. People who are literally dying to come to this country and be a part of our economy, and we don't have a civic infrastructure that processes asylum claims within any sort of humanitarian fashion. We can have secure borders and still allow our country to grow as it has for centuries. Taxpayer dollars on mass incarceration. We have 4.4% of the world's population, and we imprison 22% of the world's population. That, if you can't get your hands wrapped around the moral imperative of that, then think about it from an economic standpoint. Think of all those folks who could be participating meaningfully, and that's why even our Republican opponents are talking now for the first time about criminal justice reform. That's part of reforming our civic infrastructure. Women's rights, women having basic bodily autonomy and basic human rights, LGBTQ rights through the Equality Act, setting up an infrastructure so that everybody in this country knows they have equal access to prosperity. And then I want to talk to you about financial infrastructure. We have a 21st century infrastructure that does not respond to our needs today. We have to have a comprehensive universal health care system so that people aren't pushed into poverty just because they had a car accident. We can do better. We have done better. And the solutions are on the table. And so go to TeresaTomlinson.com, look at this important discussion, because folks, we can do better, but it matters who we send there. It matters who we send to run our government. Thank you so very much for your